Okay, so got my car back in here. It's been sitting for quite a while. I've already diagnosed it. The thing would crank, but it would not start. So I tested a few things going through. I put it had an MSD ignition system on it. So I took that stuff off, put a regular factory coil and wires back on it to see if that did anything. It didn't. Tried a few other things here and there, and then I stopped and started thinking about it. What would cause a crank and a no start? So what I did was, and it has no faults in the PCM. So what I did was I scoped I know not everybody has access to a scope, but I scoped it at work, and the crank position sensor and the top dead center position sensor, I guess, is built into one. And so I scoped those, and the top dead center or whatever showed the signal that it was supposed to, and the crank position sensor was flatlined. It wasn't showing anything. So I ordered a new one. This is what it looks like. We got the light here. It's just two individual sensors on a harness. They're on the same harness, so you have to get them both. But they're just one piece there. I don't know. They run. I got this from Rock Auto, about 120 bucks, give or take. Locally, I don't know, 150 and up ish, something like that. So they got it to me in about 2 or 3 days, which is great. It's located under the balancing shaft belt, behind the crank pulley and all that. So we're gonna go in there and we're gonna replace that today. I've already got it started here. We've got the car jacked up in the front, jack stands under it. We've got the front wheel off, and I've actually already broke loose the crank pulley. Now, a couple thoughts about the crank pulley. Crank pulley on any car is usually a pain in the ass, especially if you don't have air tools, or if you don't have an air tool with enough ass, or I don't know, your air compressor don't have enough PSI pushing out to even run the air tool properly. You know, that thing's I don't know, 26 gallon or something like that. 26 gallon, something like that. It just doesn't push enough, even with my 1/2-inch snap-on impact, to get it out. So, and being that this is a Honda motor, the Honda motor spins backwards from what a normal motor would. So now don't mistake that the bolt is left-hand thread. It's not. It's still a regular right-hand thread bolt. So on a normal factory crank pulley, if you look at it, it's got basically, it looks like a socket itself on the inside of the pulley, right? And there's a special tool that fits in there that's open-ended, and you put a ratchet on that, and then you feed through your 19mm, and with a breaker bar or something, break it loose. Well, I've got aftermarket pulleys on this car, so that setup's completely gone, and I don't have the tool anyway. So here's what we did. I took a couple pieces of wood here, set those up, set up my an extra jack stand, raised it all the way up. Now I've got a support, right? So then I took my 19 with a whole bunch of these, push them in so they're not wobbling anymore, put it on the crank bolt, slide this in, and basically what we're doing here is so that when we twist this, we're not pushing down, getting it all out of alignment. You want to keep this straight on. You want to light? Here you go. Is that easier? Yeah. All right. So I did that, and I put got a breaker bar, 1/2-inch ratchet, whatever will work, right? And then I had to use over here. I had to use my jack handle as a breaker bar to put on here, and basically I just laid on it until it snapped loose. Now here's the thing. This is going to want to turn the motor over, right? So what we did, and because I don't have that tool in there, what I used was a pry bar. And if you'll see I'll pull this back out so you can see it now. What I have here is unorthodox racing pulley. Well, they have holes all in it to make it a little lighter. So I went through one of the holes, turned the motor over until this was pried up against this, something like that, but it was tight so it wouldn't move anymore. Then I put this on there, and then I laid on it, and it broke loose. I don't want to take it all the way off yet, because we're not there yet. We got to get all the belt stuff off. But anyway, that's the best way I know to get it off if you don't have the special tool, and I don't have it. Besides, it wouldn't work with these pullets anyway. So I did spray a little bit of PV Blaster on there. Any kind of penetrating oil or anything, try to break it loose a little bit. Like I said, I had a couple 1/2 inches impacts that I tried. None of those worked. So this was the best method I could find. So anyway, that's broke loose. Next step we're going to do, well, first step I guess actually would have been to remove the battery. The battery is a little was dead on this thing anyway, so I went ahead and pulled it out. It's charging. So you want to get the battery out of there. I also, denote, you can't, on the crank pulley here, you can't put a breaker bar on there or something and turn the motor over. Since this motor spins backwards and it's still a right-hand thread bolt, it won't break loose. It'll just spin with it. So that won't work, okay? Anyway, actually, you know what? I had that on a ratchet, so that would work on a breaker bar. If I had a breaker bar here before I did that, that would have worked. I didn't. So I had a ratchet here, and that's why it didn't work. But anyway, so I did that, and we got the battery out and everything, and then I've already pulled off the power steering pulley belt. And what you're looking at here, borrow the light and I'll show you. You got an adjusting bolt here, 12 millimeter. You want to loosen that up. And on the back side over here, there's another 12 millimeter. Oh, can you get on top here and see it? There's a 12 millimeter bolt. Crack that loose. That's the one it's going to pivot off of, right there. And then this 8 millimeter, if you'll run it down, it'll loosen up. You can get the belt off. If you're going to reuse belts that have been on there any length of time, I don't like changing direction. I make a little mark. And since this engine runs backwards, I made a mark to the left, not to the right. Next, we're going to take off the alternator belt. It's going to be, let's see, battery's out, so we can go ahead and disconnect the, there's going to be a plug on the back here. You can just pull that guy out. Alright, that's off. And then, got this little cover right here, looks like 10 millimeter, we can pull that off. And that'll get your, that'll get that off. If we need to pull it off, I don't even know if we need to pull this thing off. I'll get back on that part. But, to get it off anyway, there's a, you can see the mounting point here, right through here, and you can see a mounting point, maybe, it's way down in there, it's the adjusting bracket, I don't know if you can see it or not. But what it is it's a 14 millimeter, basically if you see where the belt runs through here, it's under here, it's kind of a pain to get to, but it's through here. It's hard to see it. Anyway, it's back here. There's one there, and there's one down here a little lower. Then after you do that, you're going to be looking right through here around the AC lines. You got a 10 millimeter there, I think, that's what it looks like. And that's your adjusting bolt, just like you would here, and which will adjust it like that, which tensions your belt. So we're going to tension that and pull that one off as well. Let me get that one off, and then I'll come back and show you a little bit more. All right, so what we had left here was loosen the alternator bracket, and like I showed you, basically, where's that light at? You get the light? Here's the bracket for it, so just follow it through on the other side. You go right under the power steering pump here, and there's a 14 millimeter right here, and there's one on the bottom side of the alternator as well. To gain a little access there, I pulled this connector right here. I just pulled that little tab out and slid him off of his bracket here, and then just kind of pulled him up out of the way. Give me a little more access down in here, and loosen that 14 millimeter, and then right through here, through the AC hoses, is a 10 millimeter right here. This is your adjusting screw, just like we had one up here, which is an 8 millimeter on the power steering pump. Loosen that up, it'll run it down, you pull your belt off, and that gets it off of the AC pump, the alternator, and the crank pulley. And then from there, what we're going to do is, next step is to remove the dipstick tube. I went ahead and just pulled out the dipstick. There's one 10 millimeter bolt down in here. If you'll just follow the dipstick tube down, it's right beside the, let's see if I can, if you can see down in there, it's right down in there. You see where there's a little lip on the edge of the dipstick tube? We just reach back in there, got the 10 millimeter bolt out, and then you can just wiggle this guy right out. Probably a good idea to replace that O-ring right there. I don't have one, so I'll come back to that another time. I'm just trying to get this thing running for now. And then since we had our crank pulley loose, crank bolt loose, I had to spun that out. So we got this guy out, and this is what I was talking about, how this one doesn't have the little, basically the open in the socket in here, because it's aftermarket. So that's why we had to do it the way we did. But if you had the other one, you could put the tool in there and then break it loose. So this one was a little bit stuck. Just kind of work it back and forth, maybe spray some penetrating oil in there and break it loose. If you have it, which is nice, and I do, is you can use a puller. And since the angle that it's on there, I'll show you the angle that it's on there, it's like this, so it's half hidden, right? So what I did was went in there like this, grabbed on right here and here, you know, I had the bolt just threaded in a couple threads and pushed right against that, and that pulled it loose. But like I said, you should be able to just spray a little bit of PE blaster in there, just work it loose, should come out anyway. But I don't like to work hard, so I don't have to. So that guy's off. Now this is pretty important. I'm gonna go ahead and get the timing cover stuff off. Here you can actually see the harness for the sensors. That's right here. That's this guy. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna get this thing back at top dead center before I do too much more. And so I'm just gonna put the bolt back in, and I'm gonna run it in loosely, and then I'm gonna turn the engine over until I get it back at top dead center. Just so I know where I'm at with the timing when I pull the balance and shaft belt and stuff off. Now, I'm fortunate enough that when I put my cam gears on here, I went ahead, when the valve cover's off, I cut some notches in here so you can see and access all 5 of the bolts for the cam gears. So I can see my timing mark, so I don't have to pull the valve cover off. But if you don't have that, that's why you would pull off the connector for the alternator and pull off 10mm connecting thing, because that's going to be connected to this harness. You pull the harness back, you know, pull your spark plug boots and stuff out, plug or wires, take the valve cover off, and then you can have access to this. But like I said, we don't have to do that because mine's cut out. But that is a step you'd have to do if you don't have that. So anyway, I'm going to crank that back over to top dead center. I'm going to get the lower timing cover off, probably lower and upper timing cover here, get those off. And then we'll be about ready to get that belt off. Alright, so we got the crank pulley off and everything. Like I said, if you don't have these cutouts, which you're not going to unless you've done this on your own or something like that, but you want to get the valve cover out. I went ahead and pulled the spark plugs out because when I'm trying to get it back top dead center, it's a lot easier to turn over when you're not trying to build up compression against those. So I pulled all those out. And rather than trying to turn it, since the motor turns counterclockwise anyway, rather than putting the crank bolt back in and turning it that way, because it's just going to try to loosen it, I just came up here, since these should be tight on the camshaft bolts on the gears, and I just turned it back to top dead center. And what you're looking for on top dead center, on these gears, I'm trying to think of what it is on the regular ones. I don't remember. On these here, I've got 2 lines that go up with circles around them, and that's both top dead center, and there's 2 lines on the inside that point towards each other, and that's when you know you're at top dead center on cylinder 1 up here. And then the bottom for the crank, if you look at the little key, the keyway that goes into the crank, it should be sitting very top dead center on the very top of the crank pulley down there, or not the pulley, but you pull it off the crank gear for the belts. All right, here I found the original ones that were on there. What you're looking for is an arrow, and those are going to be pointing straight up. And then you have these little lines here, these little cutouts right here and here. I guess this could be, I guess they're interchangeable, I'm sure. So anyway, let's say this was the left-hand side one. The arrow would be pointing up, and then you'd be looking for this to match up, and then if this was over here, this one would match up, and the arrow would be pointing up, and that's top dead center on the head. And then basically, let's say this was, now let's ignore all that, and say this is the crank gear. This key, which will actually be on the outside, the Woodruff key there, is going to be straight up and down, and that's top dead center for the crank. So we got that at top dead center. I took both the timing covers off. A little bit of work there involved to actually get those off. I think there's only 2 screws that I had to remove for the top one. One's a little bit longer, the one in the back right corner, and then this one. We pulled, do it like this. And I pulled that out. And now normally, like I said, if you had the valve cover off, this will pop right out. I had to kind of get in there and pry these out because they sit up in the valve cover grooves. But the longer one goes over here, the short one goes here, and that sits over your motor mount, or the bracket for the motor mount. So I pulled that off. The bottom one, there's, let's see how many's left. 1, 2, 3, looks like 4 bolts maybe. 4 of those bolts. And I pulled this guy out. This is where your crank pulley would go. This is an adjustment belt. I think it's another adjuster belt, or pulley, excuse me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, should be 5. Mine was actually missing one now that I see that. Through here would come up, and let's see, I think right along in here is where the harness for the crank sensor and top center sensor comes out, runs through here, runs up around here. There's actually a little place here that snapped in, ran through here, and then up, the connector's right up here. So anyway, I had to kind of fight these to get them off a little bit. I also To make more room, and I'm not going to tell you to do this, but I did it anyway. I pulled off the motor mount and the bracket that goes to the block. It was just easier for me to go ahead and get all that stuff out of the way. A little more room to work in there. You know, if it helps you do it, if it don't, whatever. But it gives you a lot more open view down in here, and you can see the bounce shaft belt and everything. Here's the timing belt, and then there's the smaller one down there is the bounce shaft belt. So we're getting ready to loosen this thing up and get that off, and I'll pull that gear off and show it to you and show you what while we're in here. Okay, so I got it off. I got the bounce shaft belt off. Here it is. Actually, the last time I replaced it with a Greddy high performance time belt kit. I mean, I've been happy with it. I guess I've never had any issues out of it or anything. It actually, to be honest with you, looking at it, it still looks like it's in pretty good shape. I was kind of worried about what it was going to look like when I got it off, but no, I'm actually pretty happy with it. Anyway, anytime you pull off a belt like this, even though you have a top dead center and everything, I like to double check my marks and stuff. So I painted it. Now usually I just use whiteout or something like that, or a paint marker or something like that. I don't have one here for some reason, so I just grabbed a little bit of acrylic paint and a paintbrush, and I painted a little mark right there, which matched up with the water pump over there. So I made a mark on there as well, and then I made one on here, and of course I used blue paint on a blue belt. How awesome is that? Anyway, it's right there's my mark. So going back, we go back like that. There you go, you see that now. And that one will match up on the water pump. I don't think the water pump's really gonna matter, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So, and this one I just reached in, and it was had a little bit of rust stuff on it, so it's kind of hard. So basically what I did is I grabbed a hand on this side and on the other side, pushed it in, you know, like that, and then I pulled it back, pushed it in, pulled it out, and finally just popped right off. So anyway, this is the gear for the balancing shaft belt, and once again I'm gonna keep my belt in a certain order or a certain direction, which it'll match up on the things anyway, so it'll have to be. But we're finally where we need to be. This is what we came in here for. So there's your time belt and of course everything. But here's your your crank sensor and top dead center sensor. So you got one that comes here, it runs across the bottom here. This little piece fits in there to keep it like that and runs up. So we're gonna pull that out. We're gonna replace it. Actually, I'm pretty happy with the other one as well, as far as the timing belt goes. So that's good. That's very good. I'm happy with that. That actually feels pretty good. There's a little bit of noise in that water pump though, isn't there? Is that a water pump? No, the water pump's up there, isn't it? What is this? Where is this water pump? To be honest with you, I'm not sure at this point. A little bit of noise in that. Well, I don't have it right now, but I plan on doing a timing belt in the next 10,000 miles. So anyway, basically I gotta get this car running. So we'll be back in there later. Oh, that's the balancing shaft right there, and I just moved it. That was dumb. I didn't make a mark on that, did I? Okay, well, I'll figure out what the timing is on that and come back and let you guys know. So, anyway, let's replace that. We'll get back in here. Alright, so here's the old one. I've got it out. There was a little bracket on here. You could just take and put your pocket screwdriver down in there and pry back, and it slid right out. Switch it over to the new one. Cleaned off the bracket, switch it over to the new one. A couple things I want to show you real quick. Show you which sensor's which. I'll show you how you know that. Bear with me here, let me get in here. Alright, this one over here on your left is the top dead center one. And the way you know that is, you see where that little piece right there on the back side of the little plate is just starting to come out? That right there is your top dead center sensor, because it's only got one little mark like that, and the rest of it will come back in behind the wheel there, and this piece sticks out and goes by. So that's top dead center. This one is your crank position sensor. Knows where the crank is based on the rear of this. So it hits you little marks and it knows where it's at. I would imagine Well, based off of this, it knows exactly which position it's in. Based off top dead center, it tells it which one's top dead center firing number 1, and then from there it knows every mark means a certain position. So that's kind of give you a little bit of background of why that works and how it works. Now, I reached up there, grabbed the bounce shaft, started moving it around, thinking, what the hell am I doing after that, right? Well, I needed to know how to make sure it's back in place, in the right place anyway. So if you look down in here, there's right there where it's really bright right now, I'm going to move it away. See a little dimple, a little dent right there in the shaft. And then, see if I can clean it off so you can see it. I can see it, just a little. This engine's leaking from a lot of places. I just haven't. I've fixed a few of them, but rear main's leaking. A lot of other things are leaking. The oil filter right there, the oil cooler on there is leaking. All right. So I got to tell you a lot of things onto it, but like I said, I got to get this thing running right now. So now you see that little mark back there. And you see how the mark matched up with that little dent. That's where you put the bounce shaft belt on. So I'll double check that once I get it all the way on. But that needs to be there. Once again, you should have that little key right there going up and down. That's top to center down here. You can also see where that's coming over there. Top to center on there. So it might be off just a hair, maybe? Maybe not. No, that's probably where it first reads, right there in the dead center. Okay. So anyway, we're gonna put our bounce shaft belt back on and everything. I'm gonna match up, make sure those line up and everything, and then I'm just gonna put everything back together. So unless I see something crazy, I'm not gonna come back in here and video specifically everything going back together. It's not necessary. Basically, follow in the rush order. Once again, if you have any questions, comments, leave them below. Ask me. I'll be happy to try to answer them best I can. If I find anything else in here that I didn't point out or I missed or I want to point out a key point, I will come back and make add a little bit to it. But other than that, that's how you replace it. And this thing should fire up after that. If it does not, I'll do some more diagnosing and I'll let you know what I find, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching, guys.